Morning everybody, welcome to another day with us on the farm here at JSH Rabbits. In our last video you would have seen us testing what we call the bunker feeders. In this video we're going to show you how we actually make them, so stay tuned. We've been raising rabbits for a few years now, and our rabbitry has gone through a few evolutions. So if you've been following the channel, you would have seen how we transitioned. Anyway, since we built this new rabbitry, we've been having a few issues, particularly with the feeders that we use in the door cages. We've tried a few things, tried a few different models of feeders, and right now I think we found our solution. This solution we think is what we call the bunker feeders. We discovered originally this bunker feeder on a Russian website. Thank God for Google Translate, because I don't speak Russian, so using Google Translate I was able to sort of understand what they were trying to say. Of course, from this website it sort of led me to YouTube, and I found a few channels that show the bunker feeders in use. However, I found this particular channel. It's called, or it translates to House Starkov, and I sort of liked how his demonstration was, so I can put the link to his video in the description, and he has a lot of content and some other stuff about rearing rabbits and cages and stuff. However, it is in Russian, so I mean you would have to just watch and see what he's doing. So through watching channels like House Starkov and other Russian YouTube channels, you know, I sort of learned a lot about the design. Saw a few things that I would incorporate into our design, and you know, we just decided to do something to see if it would work for us. So now that we confirmed that it can work, we are going to show you how to replicate it for yourself. Of course, don't forget to check out House Starkov's channel. You can give him a like or a thumbs up, and if you so desire you can subscribe to his channel as well. Alright, so on to the feeder making. Those following the channel would be really familiar with this area. This is where a lot of the magic happens, so to speak, and this is where we'll actually be making the bunker feeders. Before we get into that though, we're gonna show you the tools that we will need to use. Just to give you a closer look of all the tools that we will need to make our bunker feeder. Okay, so let me just go through. Alright, so you know, we would need a file. We would need this little bending tool, or a bending tool, and you'll see why further down. You would need a hammer. We would definitely need this tool. This is a new tool that we ordered. It's called a crimping tool, a stud crimping tool. You would need a pliers. Doesn't have to be vice grip pliers, but it could be some other pliers. You would need a cutting implement, whether it be tin snips or, you know, aviation shears or whatever you call them. You would need a rivet gun and rivets. For this case we're using 1/8 rivets, and you would also need a drill. So because we're using 1/8 rivets, we need a 1/8 bit for the drill. So these are the tools that we actually use. And of course, the table itself comes in handy. If you watched our last video that we showed how to make the J feeders, you know, the table would have factored heavily into that because of the tools that are attached to the table. So the table is important because it is used to bend the parts of the feeder. What you will also need is a pencil and a straight edge. In this case, we're actually using a meter ruler. What I forgot to mention also was that you will need a particular tool to help to make your template, and it's one of these. This is basically called a compass, and I just got it in one of these little geometry sets that they normally sell at your stationery stores here, right? So you'll definitely need this so you can draw the round section, this part of your template. Now that we've actually shown you all the tools that you need, it's time to actually get into making the feeder. So these are the base dimensions that we used in the construction of our feeders. Of course, if you watch the video, you will realize that our feeders look a little bit different. What we did is we made some adjustments to the width and the height of our feeders, as well as added maybe one or two features that is not depicted in the drawings. However, if you choose to build exactly as specified, they will work just the same. However, based on our needs, that's why we made these adjustments. This is a model of the feeder that we made based on the dimensions that we saw, with a little modifications for our purposes. So this is a model of it we made out of like a paper board, just to see what it would look like as the finished product. Of course, you know, before you can make the feeders, you would have to make a template. So we already made our template and we drew and cut out the parts already. Alright, so we used our pencil and our template to trace out the parts, cut them out, and we also did some deburring with our file. Alright, so this feeder consists of 5 parts. We have the 2 side pieces here. We have a middle partition section. We have the front piece and we have the back piece. So when we assemble it, it will look like this. One of the first things we'll need to do after getting the parts and deburring them and everything is we would need to bend. So I'm going to start off with the 2 side pieces. So I'm going to bend them now. So this is how we would do the side pieces, both of them, and they would look like this when bent completely. We're actually going to bend this this partition piece now. This is where this little bending tool comes in handy. So there's a small section right here that we will need to bend. So we'll have to just put the bending tool in it and just bend it like this. So this is what the partition will look like bent. So This is the front, and there are some places to be bent on the front. So I'll go ahead and do that now. So with the front, there is one part that is bent to the front and one part that is bent to the back. Of course, with the feeder parts too, there's a line that is drawn in the middle, and this will tell us where we need to line up the partition piece, because the partition piece will be attached to the front. I need to cut some notches into the front piece, and you'll see why I need to do this later, because the front piece will actually be bent in these sections, so you will see that. So now I'll actually need to bend the front piece more. I'll have to bend it this way, and once I bend it this way, I'll need to bend these edges. I've had to bend the front pieces this way, or the front piece this way. Alright, so there's one other bend I'll need to make on it. And here we have the front piece completely bent. Now for the back piece. Similarly, like the front piece, there will be a section of the back piece that needs to be bent towards the front and bent towards the back. So I'll just do that now. Of course, your template should be drawn in such a way that you can easily mark the areas that need to be bent and need to be bored. So all of these areas are indicated on the pieces. That's why we can do it so quickly. On this back piece, this area that is bent will form the lip of the feeder, and this part up here will form the hook that you can hang the feeder from. This is where we will use to hang the feeder onto the cage. So this will be bent this way. Yes. So it will be bent this way, and the feeder would hook onto the cage from here. This bottom section will actually require some boring, as there's a section that is marked here that will form like a sifter for the bottom of the feeder. So we need to bore these holes so the feed will sift out when it's put into the feeder. We'll also need a little piece of board just to put some space between the table and the drill, so when we bore in we don't damage the table. when all the holes are drilled, this is what it will look like. Now that we would have gotten all the parts prepared, it's actually now time for assembly. So what we'll need for assembly is we'll need the crimper, we'll need the rivet gun, we will need a few rivets, and we will also need the drill, but that would be, yeah, we'll need the drill. We'll also need the drill. Alright, so now we're ready to assemble. The first part we're going to assemble is the front and the partition piece. Remember, I was telling you about the line that is marked on the front piece. We need to line up where the partition piece will sit. So this is why we need that line, because it's supposed to sit in the center. We're gonna line it up and we're gonna mark where we're going to bore the holes for it to be riveted. We can't actually use the crimper for this because the crimper only goes to a certain depth, so to speak, so we can't crimp this part. Alright, so now that we've marked the relevant sections, we're going to bore them. So we have the drill. Now that we've bored the holes, we're going to just rivet this part in place. This is what it will look like. Of course, one of the things I should have mentioned earlier, that when you're working with sheet metal, it's always a good idea to wear gloves. Sheet metal is sharp, and when you're cutting it, there can be sharp edges and pointed edges that will definitely puncture you or cut you if you're not wearing gloves. So safety first.
So why are you not wearing gloves now?
I said it's a good idea. Alright, so that's it. Now we are going to attach the front to the sides. So we're gonna pull for our crimper and the pliers. So we're just gonna line it up, and then we're going to crimp and use our pliers now to actually set the crimps in place better. So it's like the crimps will form like a burr, and we just use the pliers to depress them further. So this is what it will look like crimped. Alright, so just gonna line it up some more. So when you crimp it, this is what this section will look like. I'll need to just crimp along here. This is it, and I'll need to do the same thing for the other side. When both side pieces are attached, this is what we end up with. So all I would need to do now is attach this part and we'll be done. So now we're gonna attach the back piece. Okay, so we had already did the necessary bending, so all we need to do now is to actually start attaching it and then sort of folding it in the right direction. Crimp it there, and we crimp it in the other sections, going all the way down. Of course, we're gonna do the same thing for the other side. The back part is attached. Now, what we'll need to do is we'll need to attach the front lip. So we need to fold this part over and then clip it together in these sections. In order for us to do that, we'll need to bend this over and we'll need to mark an area in the partition section to kind of cut and insert the front lip of the feeder. So we'll need to line up the lip, mark it, and then use our aviation snips or aviation shears or tin snips to cut the requisite area. So we'll cut a little notch in the partition section, and this is where the lip of the feeder will go. So once we fold it over, we will crimp the relevant sections together. Right? Of course, we'll still need to apply some force to it, otherwise the crimps will be released, because you know this has some amount of tension in it to pull out. So because of the fact that we actually this part, because of the bending, it has some amount of tension on it, we'll need to rivet this front piece together. So the drill may come in again here. And we'll need to insert a rivet, otherwise it's gonna pull out quite easily. Get the rivet on, insert the rivet. And you clip your rivet in place. Alright, now for the other side. Now that we've clipped both sides together, this is the completed product. So as I was saying earlier, this is the part where we'll hook onto the side of the cage so the feeder can be installed. Of course, the dimensions that we provided, we modified them for our own purposes. So depending on the type of setup that you use, you will have to do the same. What I've seen though is that similar to the hook that we have on the back here, persons have actually made a piece of metal and put it on the front here to form a hook, and they place hooks here and here on this side. So what that enables them to do is to attach it to the front of a cage, similar to how a J feeder would work. But that's not how we intend to use it, so we've made our own modifications. So if you put a piece of metal across the front here to form a hook, and put hooks on these edges here, you know, you can attach it to the front of a cage or the door of a cage. So it will work similar to a J feeder. And I think I'll provide a photograph to show how it could be attached. So this is actually the completed product. There are a couple bars on the bottom of this based on the boring that we had done. So what I need to do is I'll need to just use the file and just rub them off, and that would be it for making this feeder. Of course, based on our needs, we'll need to make about 60 of these. So we will continue to work on them until we reach our goal. So that's it from us here at JSH Rabbits. Thank you for watching the video. Of course, if you have any questions, you can leave them in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, to share, and to subscribe to the channel. And of course, see you in the next one. As a little bonus, we're just gonna show you the feeder in action. So this is a good sign. The kids are eating out of the feeder. That's very good. And they're not climbing inside. So I think it's safe to say now that we can actually mass produce these feeders and they're not scratching it out. So that's good. And as you can see, more than one kit can be fed at the same time, and that's very good.